We will post the webinar update or the write-up on LinkedIn, and I will be tagging everyone that is on this webinar and who have registered. If you're not connected with Howard Diesel on LinkedIn, do that so that you can receive the recording. Yes, please use the Menti to ask questions and get your answers. And yes, presentation deck will be available at the end of the series. So at the end of this week or next week, we'll have the presentation deck for how to speak your data. Can I have the next slide, please? Amazing. So March, we're almost at the end. Tomorrow is the CDMP Q&A. If you would like to know more about CDMP certification, we have Veronica Diesel, who is educational director, and she'll take you through the whole process of the CDMP certification, everything you need to know, tips and tricks about the exam. And then on the 28th, we have big data and data science. It's going to be about women in AI and attracting women to AI and STEM. It's going to be with Liesel Engelbrecht and Natalie Ruthman, I think. I need to get her surname right. Next slide, please. Amazing. So training. There we go. Training, we have the CDMP refresher on the 2nd of April. If you would like to write your exam and you've studied and you need one last little boost, yeah, it's a full day course with Veronica, and she'll give you practice questions and a quick summary of the DMBOK, and yes, tips and tricks on how to just land that exam. And then
totally worth it. Totally worth it from my side. Like, that helped so much.
Thank you, Esty. Yeah, so from the 4th to the 8th, we have how to model data with Howard Diesel, and that is based on Steve Hoberman's masterclass, modeling masterclass. Really check it out. I know Howard has been modeling for years and years and years, and he says every time he does this training, he learns something new each time. So really a good one for everyone to check out. And then we have so data management for certification. That's Veronica's course, the data management fundamentals. It is from the 11th to the 14th. If you would like to start with your CDMP certification, then this is the great one to start with, and you get all the fundamentals. Next slide, please. Is that all of them? Amazing. So I'm going to hand over to the guest speakers. Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it. Have everyone enjoy the session.
Yes, thanks, Debbie. So for everybody that hasn't perhaps been in the session, we are marching through March, and the sessions focus on how to speak data. So how we can speak more business using business terms and their context. And it's all about the power of the semantic chain. And we've been focusing on applying this to a real business case. So we're learning how to speak sustainability and looking at that specific business case. So we're on week 4. So week 1, I covered the aspects of from a data manager's perspective. We covered the data citizen, where our specific data citizen did fall off his actual bike, and how the data citizen really can set up the data professional for success. And last week, Paul and I had discussions on the data professional specifically and how we've been working with the semantic chain and exploring this area. And up this week is week 4 with the data executive being JG. So just so you all know, this is a current business case that we're working on, and we're really learning like we're going. So please ask questions. Some of the questions that you have asked in previous sessions have been really helpful to us, focusing on business, the privacy aspect of different sustainability frameworks and using data from the one for the other. So all your inputs have been really appreciated. So please input on Menti, comments on the chat, or just ask us in between or afterwards. And now the next slide, I think Howard is going to do a very, very short essential concepts for us this round.
Okay, great. So maybe for those that haven't attended in the past, this is These are some of the elements of the semantic chain. And this is almost a level of progression. Taxonomy, really just a set of tags, free text tags that you may have experienced working with that in SharePoint. Then we go into more controlled lists. So now you can only choose from what you have. And that's where some of the challenges come in, especially if it doesn't meet your requirements. It doesn't describe what you're talking about. And then we go into more powerful structures like the taxonomy. And that's really just there for hierarchical relationships and categorization of concepts. That's what the taxonomy introduces. Now, lots of the sustainable frameworks are expressed in taxonomies. Okay, and when you jump out into not so much your hierarchical parent-child relationships, and when you start having associations across all different elements, that's when you create the ontology. Now, the amazing thing is once you have the ontology, you can connect that into a graph, and it then becomes a knowledge graph. And all of a sudden, you can associate or connect tags, data elements to these graph elements. And if you look at the back history of some of the discussions, John O'Gorman was just talking about answering some of the questions we had about equivalence nodes. So, for example, if you have two Howard Diesel added for different documents, you can then have equivalent nodes, but equivalent relationships between those different nodes. So now the graphs get more and more exciting, but that's the journey that it starts to build up in, and that's the exciting part. So get your ontology right, get your model right. It's higher than data model, and we'll see that on the next graph. And then you can add it to the data and add it to the machine. And now you've got more impressive machine learning, which is what we're trying to achieve and get the machine able to infer more about what's happening. Next slide. These are controlled vocabularies. We talk about different ways of doing it, different levels of controlling. And we've got these vocabulary views and micro-controlled vocabularies. So almost every single sustainability framework, and I think JG's listed maybe 10, has its own vocabulary around sustainability. Now, where these things get challenging is that if you have a balance sheet and some investor or somebody wants to see your sustainability investment in their preferred vocabulary or semantic taxonomy, that needs to be pivoted and converted to that area. So this is how we can grow, or what the micro-controlled vocabulary is all about. Next slide, Isti. And then our famous semantic chain. This is what we're wanting to do. We're wanting to increase our understanding and build stronger semantics. So we spoke about, for example, Reserve Bank or Standard Bank having a fine for lack of business glossary right down at the bottom. Now we want to get better and better at understanding this. So we would go to enterprise data models, taxonomies, and ontologies. And that's sort of the vocabulary we're talking about. And at the bottom, these are the technologies that we would use to express those vocabularies. Now, as we reduce the confusion and increase the understanding and meaning, these tend to take a bit more time to get right. And it would be interesting. I know John Gorman challenged me on the first time I put it up, and he felt that developing an ontology is not as onerous as developing an enterprise data model. And I'd like, it would be great to go through that journey, because you can certainly create an enterprise data model from an ontology. So I'm not sure how you would have less time spent in that. But anyway, that's something that we'll start to work through and things like that. But I don't want to spend too much time because JG is going to tell us all about the business value of our semantic chain. All yours, JG.
Oh, thank you, Howard. And yeah, thank you to the DAMA community for the opportunity to, over the last 4 weeks, just gently walk through the use case that we have in front of us. In particular, it's a sustainability use case. We thought it would be topical. Most people can relate to it. And what is being really interesting is the fact that at its heart, at its core, the sustainability use case is all about transparency. Transparency with respect to how a company is investing its capital, how transparency with respect to how the up and downstream suppliers are operating with respect to the services being provided for them. So it's an exciting time to just listen to parties who are specialists in sustainability, understand how the vista and the need to be inclusive of parties both up and downstream from your business is a requirement for this phase of defining your sustainability alliance and allegiance. And so not only is it sustainability, but if anything, if a business case depends on transparency and you have lots of data, well, then immediately you are front and center into the requirements of how do we as data professionals serve this particular problem. And so it's been a bit of a privilege. We have a client who has requested us to put a data management overlay onto their sustainability initiative. And what I'm going to be doing today is talking about it from my perspective, and the persona that I'm taking on is the data exec. Fundamentally, the data exec is you're the one throat to choke with respect to a sustainability, with respect to does the money that you spend equal the benefit that you get? So I start with this slide because even though we're speaking about a data product, I believe fundamentally any product becomes confident within the business context if the following three things are true. So I'm saying your business confidence is related to the following three things, regardless of whether it's a data product or whether it's a widget that you've produced, is you've got to have a market that is looking for you to offer your product into. So there must be an environment in which your product can land quickly and can land cost effectively. So there must be a market that is looking for your product. Then the construct of your product is, what is it that's unique, be it a service or a widget that you are bringing into that market to satisfy that need. And then that last thing, the top right, and I'm going to be quite purposeful about walking it in the sequence, is can it scale? So anybody can produce an Excel spreadsheet to do lots of things, but as soon as you look to try and do it at a enterprise-proof scale, well, now all of a sudden those some of the tools become deficient and aren't quite as valuable. So the reason why I think that next slide, please. The reason why I believe that there is an aspect or a overlay when one looks at it from a data products perspective, and I've called it the data product secret sauce, is I think that the data product can do the following three things. And we've seen it in two, and we have a challenge in the last one. So starting with markets, is the data product is able to pivot across markets quicker than most other products can. So there's this construct of can you pivot? Understanding that a data product has the highest likelihood to be able to pivot, whether you can or can't is another question. The next thing the product can do is it has the ability to integrate and connect. So interconnected nature of a product, and you can deploy or you can offer products that integrate layer by layer. And that's very difficult for I'm going to call it a widget. What I mean by that is a physical product. So data products have a distinct advantage in that they can potentially occupy markets where it's possible to pivot, possible for your product as it stands as a data product to integrate. And we had a detailed discussion 3 weeks ago as to whether what we're offering is data as a service or software as a service. And we came to grips with the fact that we believe that it's actually data as a service, and we put some guide rails down for that definition. And then the last one is the ability to deploy products, be there now that we have the luxury of being well, not even a luxury, clients demand cloud-based deployments of these solutions, is data products have that opportunity to scale. So nothing new here. I think that if we were in a room, I'd look around and I'd see some nods, and I am seeing a couple. There's nothing new. But what does this actually mean for a day in the life of a data exec? So my job is to, with confidence, stand up in front of my board and tell them that I believe that our data product roadmap should should contain the following items. And it basically transitions us from our current state to our future state. What's important is this particular case study has a product. It is sold to multiple blue chip companies. It used to be a very elaborate Excel modeling exercise that's been industrialized and now offers a much greater level of you can think of it, it got itself damerized. The product was damerized. And so we have a current product, and the client has invested close to R1 million deploying this product to its existing user base. My job as the data exec is to try and figure out on what do I base my confidence that we should invest more. So already R1 million has been invested, and we have traction with clients. So we've been able to assess the market, and we've taken a product to market. But the thing that we don't have yet is we don't have lots of clients, and we haven't needed to scale amongst those clients. And that's where it was against that backdrop that Howard and I started a discussion, and that's where the series was spawned from, is when I started to talk to Howard about what I felt were the inhibitors of my product and also the scale of that product. And so for today's meeting, it's all about what needs to be true for a data exec to transition a product from its current state to a preferred future state. And I'm going to walk through those 3 circles in detail from a commercial perspective: the market, the product, and the scale. And I think you can already start to get a sense that I'm going to, please one back. I'm going to use ST1 back, please. I'm going to try and offer my perspective as to why it's quite important for that blue arrow top right. You would have seen it. Howard's just spoken about it. It's the it's our semantic chain. Thank you. So that item in the top right is the semantic chain. And what I'm going to touch now is I'm not going to touch on anything technical. Rob, you raised the point a little bit earlier. It's like, it's all good, but where's the value to the client? If we could have, we probably would have led this series starting with a business case, finishing with the technical delivery of the business case. But because of the audience and the kind of progression, we thought we'd start with the personas, ending with a business case. So Rob, I hope that I will be I'm holding myself accountable to now answer your question, which was great. Technically, graph databases, etc. Who cares? Where's the business case, and does it make sense? And so that's what I'm going to be covering in today's talk. So next slide, please.
Sorry, JG.
Thank you, Howard.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that one of our reasons for doing the executive last is sometimes we go into technology that we don't really understand. So we need to spend a bit more time in terms of how do we bring this technology in? How do we convince our data citizens to get involved? How do we convince our professionals what they need to do? And then after we have a good understanding of this, how is the exec going to sell this to the board? And so it was just that journey of understanding before it got to the real nuts and bolts in terms of saying, well, that's great now, but how do we convince the business to buy into this?
Great, thanks, Howard. So if you stay with me in terms of, on the left in the light blue is the current state, on the right is the darker blue, it's the aspiration of the future state. These 3 points are kind of our guiding principles as to where we are and where we want to go, and we're looking to leverage market scale and product to get there. So just highlighting the 3 points raised on the left-hand side in the light blue box is We currently provide a product that solves a problem for the client that they are experiencing right now, and they need a solution to cover it. So we do solve that problem. The challenge is we don't only solve the problem that they currently have, which is to generate a sustainability report. As a result of holding the data in such a way, we've unlocked the potential to look at the data through multiple lenses, not only one. The challenge is the client doesn't know that they don't have that problem articulated yet, number one. And number two is they definitely haven't mobilized the budget to solve a problem that we believe we are now able to help the client navigate. So although we have a product that solves a particular problem, we built a product that solves more than just that problem. It now becomes a guiding process for the client to, how do we take them to the realization that this product can offer more. The middle point is the clients are currently paying for the solution, but we have the challenge where I told you we've invested R1 million. We believe that we can claw that back. We from our pipeline, we have an ROI that is acceptable, but to think that you can get your capex back or your investment back immediately is a bit of a pipe dream. But my board is they say that it's acceptable for our current run rates as long as we keep to that. And then what we do know is the client has already budgeted and allocated, or they've allocated funds or budget to solving this problem. And this was such a key learning in a B2B solution for us, is when you arrive, one of our clients was wooed by the construct of sustainability, and they really wanted to see us, not one of our clients, a potential client was wooed by sustainability. We arrived, we showed them what we did. They looked at it and went, oh, shucks, we'd really like that, but it's not budgeted for. So one of the key things that we start to ask is, whereabouts are you in your budgeting cycle relative to the problem that you want to solve? And that's been a key learning for us, is that when you are dealing with when you are offering a solution for sustainability, it's very vogue and very desired, but doesn't mean that you've got budget. So that's where we find ourselves. Our target is we want to refine our product's unique value proposition so that we can differentiate. So right now, the market is broken into raters and consultants, and we find ourselves somewhere in the middle in the South African context, and we need to be a little bit more crisp with how we define that. So we've got a market problem in terms of exactly the problem to solve. A guarantee that the product can be enhanced over time and increase its value to clients and improve its competitive differentiation. That point in particular, we believe, sits fairly and squarely in the realm of consistency and predictive definition. And so all of the work that we've done on taxonomies and ontologies makes that line item a more and more of a reality. It's hard, but we believe that all the work that we're investing in our ontology and our taxonomy work is going to facilitate that. Mainly, in addition to that, is the product can be produced in a more efficient way over time. And already we're seeing that as soon as we have new clients who come on, they bring in their own definitions, it just creates a much heavier solution for us to be catering for everybody's different definitions, for us to bring a level of alignment back to an international standard. A sustainability taxonomy is just, it removes the debate, because we just say to the client, we're taking you towards a international standard. This is what it is. This is why we use it. And the client goes, oh, we didn't actually know it existed. Yeah, we're happy to align with that. So we're seeing that these constructs of taxonomies in the marketplace are a easy sell to take the client along. It's efficient for us, but it's actually beneficial to the client. So Esty, next slide, please.
Sorry, JG.
Thank you.
Sorry, JG.
Yeah, Howard?
If you wouldn't mind just going back one.
Back one, Esty, please.
I think you've mentioned that definition and meaning quite often. And I do sort of have an understanding of people can express it differently. And then if I was to read someone's balance sheet, I would probably maybe not see it in the same way. Could you give me a bit more practical example for all of us to understand, and maybe just to ask Rob, were you able to understand exactly what that product gave us by what JG is saying, or would you like an example, a little bit more, maybe an expression on what's on the balance sheet and how you standardize it, or define the taxonomy?
As soon as you mentioned balance sheet, it started to make sense. So,
Okay.
I think the context is important, but I was going to hold questions because I didn't want to interrupt JG's flow.
Very, very happy to do that. So maybe let me just flesh that out a bit. Is one of the key propositions of this solution is to recouple the economics to the sustainability initiatives and try and show every sustainability initiative through the lens of financial documents that are currently in place within businesses, within the gambit of the way a business is run. Fundamentally, 3 documents. Your balance sheet, which gives you a very strong idea of your capital, your deployment of capital. Your income statement, which gives you an idea of your profit and loss and your current operating, your current operating, I don't want to say principle, but it's almost like your rationale, your current operating rationale. But your income statement usually has, 1 year, current year, previous year vista, versus your balance sheet, which actually winds back several years. And when you bring those, and the last thing you add is a cash flow statement, and we're not very fit bringing in the cash flow statement, but the aspirational goal is how do you link all your sustainability initiatives to your balance sheet item, an income statement item, and your cash flow. So if we just focused on balance sheet and income statement, those elements give you a view of your sustainability intent. For example, if I am a manufacturer and I'm building a site, I'm building a school next to one of my sites, I'm going to get capex. I'm going to see the capex flow out of my balance sheet into a sustainable project of a new school, which is right next to my plant. Now, if one has a look at that through the sustainability goals, the SDG sustainability development goals, there's 17 of them. And if you just think about what a school does, is a school impacts education, it impacts the better life for all within the construct of my environment. You may set up the school in such a way that it has an environment, it is environmentally aware. And so all of a sudden I have a capital item, but actually it can be deployed through a series and sequence of sustainability development goals. And I want to keep track of those. And so when somebody takes a balance sheet investment and couples it to my sustainability initiatives and does it in a way that is you can follow the trend over time, that becomes really attractive to the business to vouch for its sustainability initiatives way beyond what is, we invest X amount on making sure that we have filters on the flues that are emitting gases, and we've been able to decrease our SOx and NOx emissions by X%. So it is lifting the vista of association. So not to get into sustainability, but to bring in the fact that there's financial documents that need to be coupled to sustainability initiatives, and those sustainability initiatives can have multiple definitions. And so it's almost coming through the financial lens to couple the economic lens, because the financial lens is it has been defined for that. It has much better definition, and it gives you much more certainty for your coupling, and also consistency over trend over time. So that's what we mean when we say the competitive differentiation is, it's not just about sustainability. It's how do you bring the FD to have a seat at the sustainability table? Is the way you do that is you bring in the financials and you couple and link these things and make sure that they stay together. So I'm hoping that gave some context in terms of what it means to couple sustainability with economics.
Thanks, JG.
Next slide. So I highlight this again. This is just 3 different parties forming an opinion on why sustainability is good for business. And fundamentally, it comes down to this diagram, which is if there's a sustainability intervention somewhere in time, can I hold everything sufficiently still so that I can answer the question which says, did that particular intervention result in business value? And it's really important to understand that that intervention may be coming at a significant cost. So, for example, one of the miners has developed their own IP in terms of a hydrogen-powered open cast mine truck. So that R&D cost to generate that hydrogen-powered open cast mine truck is an investment, and they're wanting to look at that investment relative to the return of how they've moved the needle with respect to business value. And so it's quite important to be able to measure when your event in time took place, and then have a look at business value post that event. So this is the market. This is what the market's looking at. And next slide, please, ST. Is when you start hearing it through the voice of the CEO and or let's say the C-suite, because sitting in the meeting, there's the chief sustainability officer, the chief financial officer, the chief marketing officer, interestingly enough, the chairman, and the CEO. So those are the parties that have got these questions. We've covered 4 of them already. I just wanted to highlight the last 2. This is literally verbatim statements that we've captured as a result of taking our product to market. And some of the this was the sustainability person speaking. They're saying, surely key inputs to this is the FD speaking. Surely key inputs to sustainability should attract a different accounting construct to record this value to the business, which is a fascinating mental model, because this person was going, if I invest in a sustainable asset, surely I should be able to depreciate it over 5 years and not 3 years. Surely? Well, now all of a sudden you really are at the heart of setting precedents, understanding whether that is or isn't something that your GARP structures will or will not tolerate. But this is the level that the FD now starts to engage, going, well, shucks, if I'm going to invest, surely I can see the benefit, because I know that I actually want that asset to be operating for a longer period. So these kind of questions are really at the heart of some of the accounting premises that we operate off. And this is the level to which some of these sustainability discussions will drive change. Of course, if that were to be the case, you better believe that you have to have such a tidy data structure that vouches for the fact to say that that asset is what, let's deem it a green asset. It's been around for so long. It's had the following benefit, the following effect. Can you just see the knock-on effect on data provisioning as and when people start to make these kind of decisions or contemplate these kind of the consequence of these decisions? The last one, I know that the annual integrated report presents ESG and economics in the same report, but how do I couple these together to see how the one enables the other? And this is such a leading statement that we've picked up on and said, yeah, you've got these initiatives, you have to report on it, so you report on it, but seldom are these things intercoupled and intertwined, and I feel like I've used enough time to demonstrate that the financial document item. I present this slide purely for cadence. So from 2004 to today, 16 years, there has been an exponential increase, tenfold exponential, of not the government interventions, but the industry policy interventions for ESG. So you're starting to see this hockey stick effect of industry getting involved. Then over there's been a twofold increase in support of the ESG shareholder resolutions. There's less and less friction at a board level to pass these initiatives, which means that the FD is under more and more pressure to find the money to pass for these resolutions to come into effect. Top right, it talks about the global assets under management grow by 40%, What that means is the cost of capital, if you do not talk to your sustainability initiatives, has just gone up. So you will be competing for capital against parties who do have a sustainability plan. And if you do have a sustainability plan and you can prove it, you become eligible for capital capital allocations that you otherwise wouldn't. And there's some other Gen X, etc. I don't want to spend too much time here. Next slide, please. ST. So fundamentally, this slide, Howard presented maybe 5 or 6, could have even been at the beginning of this year. And this slide really resonated with me because I went, oh my word, okay, that's all we are. We're actually just simply a data broker. And so that was a big realization, is we think we're a, yes, we are a data as a service business case, but actually fundamentally, if you ask what we are, is we're actually a data broker for sustainability. What that means is we've got data providers and we've got data consumers, and we're operating in the middle as a data broker. The challenge that I had with this diagram, and I think I read it wrong initially, was, there's almost like a data product hierarchy. And so I don't have a problem with the hierarchy, but the problem that I had is, sure, I don't have less products as I go up the funnel or towards the apex of the triangle. And so in order to make this diagram, suitable for my business case, I actually needed to turn it on its side, because, next slide, please. Because actually what starts to happen is that middle light blue box is what the business does, is we are a data broker for sustainability. But what I kept forgetting is we were only delivering on one of the possible data products that were part of this ecosystem of offering. And that's the 1/3 box first down, which is the sustainability report. And thanks, Esty. So the whole focus, remember I said to you that we pitched to clients and we were offering them more than what they were asking for, which was problematic in the sales cycle. So we stopped that. We literally have just gone back to the client and offering them what they want at a price point that's acceptable, but with the aspiration of leading them through each of the different opportunities that the product now, that the data now offers. And what are they? So this was a really useful picture to say, well, there are actually 4 types of products. We've got an atomic data service, and that AAAI at the top there is just talking about the atomic data, aggregated data, the analytics service, and then the insights. So as we were going across here, the pyramid kind of just made me focus on building a sustainability report and doing it as efficiently as we could. But actually, in the process of building that sustainability report, we realized we actually have almost 15 products. Some of them aren't mature yet, but we have aspirations to build them. And each of them can be delivered to our consumer as they currently stand. And so we took that data hierarchy, data broker, broke it into each of these items, defined what our different services are. And so we, for example, our atomic data, there's a big difference between financial data and non-financial data. You cannot believe the surprise that clients have when they see those 2 numbers put together, because it's really hard for them to do on their own. So we're going, oh my word, that's an amazing delivery. Awesome, we have one of those. Then we have SDG mapping, we have completeness scoring. When you have a data assessment that depends on 20 people entering data, you've got to gamify the fun of collecting it. Now, that's not a product that we sell, that's a product that we offer because it's fun. So all of a sudden, we gamify the collection of the data, which is, it's advantageous to us because we just get it quicker, and the people who are delivering it just are more fun to work with when we engage with them. So that one's not for sale for a price, but it has a massive emotive sale to it. Then we have aggregated services where we start to curate and bring this information together. Some of this we don't have critical mass to do this yet, but we've got the structure to collect it as we go. But the last one, that comparator service, kind of your nearest neighbor, that's forcing us to have a look at our data classification through the lens of the JSE, through the lens of the Stats SA. Stats SA use a classification matrix that is really, it's like we should just use it. And so the JSE have one, the Stats have one. Now we've got to figure out which one we align with. So just those couple of driving master data changes. Visualization is obvious, but we didn't see all the other products. And then that narratives, insight, and publishing. This is a really interesting engagement that we've currently got, because there are lots of companies that do that. They generate board packs, investor decks, and they do a profile launch to social media, etc. But they don't have a sustainability offering. So now there are partnerships happening in that last narrative and insights and publishing track, which we actually didn't see before. And so the important part of this is we've extended out our sustainability pack. And so as the data exec who's responsible for revenue generated from this platform, equally for the expenditure or the money we have to spend to get this picture allows me to sleep at night, because I know what my products are, I know what sequence they're coming in, and I can vouch for some of them what they currently bill and what the other ones could bill. And the premise is the more items you bring in here, the more valuable it gets. That's a premise. We don't have that right now. We don't have critical mass. The data consumers, which is been quite useful, is when you've got so many products, it's a nightmare to sell it. Well, at least to know the sequence of sales. So therefore, if you have your persona, if you define your persona quite well and you understand the journey mapping of that persona, you can sell them products in a sequence. We haven't done that particularly well yet, but we are right now. We're working with intra-business, so we have divisional and group views, and we're looking to. And interestingly enough, we've got competition amongst the divisions within a group to beat each other on their sustainability scores, and we didn't even have to do anything. So we think that's pretty cool, mainly because we didn't have to do anything, but we are claiming that like you cannot believe, right? We are owning that, but in truth, we didn't do anything about it. What it shows to me is there's this pent up, maybe it's just a competitive client, or there's this pent up desire to leverage sustainability as a, doing good is good for business. Maybe there's a pent up aspect of that, not sure. When we have, contractually, we are very clear that some of the rebates that we offer allow us to collate the data in such a way that it is attractive for other parties to either financial, insurance, etc. I promised that I would overlay why I feel like controlled vocabularies are so important. This is my last slide, and I want to just end with this because it brings together the reason why we've been so excited to spend 4 weeks telling you about this business case and talking about controlled vocabularies. Is every red box that you see there, we see the opportunity that if we had a greater level of certainty, control, and confidence in the taxonomies and the resulting ontologies that those particular aspects of our solution depend on, we would be even more confident that we could take those products to market even quicker. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we have, next slide, please, Esty. Last slide, please, Esty. We have, no, please, next. We have a current product, and we've spent money on it, and we're busy sweating it, and we're desperately trying to make sure that it delivers on its objectives. We're now looking to enhance it, and one of the mechanisms of enhancing, well, I guess there are two, the product. We didn't see all the layers of our product until we really focused on the fact that we were a broker. There are 4 things in here. They look different, and we gave them names. And then the last one is we think that our scale, the ability for us to scale, really depends on consistency. And we think that quite a lot of that consistency sits within a taxonomy. And funnily enough, we've actually cobbled together an ontology. It's not very good, but it's there. And we're looking to evolve and enhance it relative to the taxonomies that we have available to us. And how do we actually have an ontology? We don't have an enterprise data model, but we have what we call an ontology. And we might be wrong, but we're holding on to it because we see the advantage and the scale that it's already bringing us. And so this is our closeout slide to say thank you to the community for working with us. You've been very tolerant. You've allowed us to bring a real life use case. You've seen us change direction intra-week. Estee's told you we did this, and then the next week we came up, we did that. It's been live, it's been exciting, it's been good to be accountable to the community to bring to you our findings. We think it's quite exciting to have a DAMA community in our country that just, and when I say in our country, that's not accurate. We've got internationals on our DAMA community, and it's just the coolest thing to have is that we can bring what we considered to be quite a difficult problem to solve. We brought it into the community. We've got great feedback. We've loved this process. You've been particularly tolerant, and yeah, we'd like to thank you for just encouraging us. We're driving hard. You've helped us, and we just wanted to say thank you for that. Howard, can I maybe hand back to you?
Yes, you can, JG. Thanks very much. I just wonder if I could pause and just ask Rob. Rob, any questions from your side? Observations?
Whoops. That's a silly question.
You mean you got lots?
Well, I have a lot of observations, and to try and digest all this in one go, I would love to go through this on my own sometime, if that's all right, which I will certainly endeavor to do, and maybe discuss it with Giles when at 12 o'clock at night in Australia. So I've made a few notes. First of all, JG, the work that you've done here is absolutely tremendous. I mean, it's made things a hell of a lot more understandable to Rob the layman. And what I would anticipate sitting in the seat of the execs. So now that I've made you feel really good about yourself, I'm going to do a couple of questions that may not be as... the beneficiaries in an organization seem to be many, but the focus seems to be on the FD. Am I correct?
So it's a really good question. I believe that the focus is from the C-suite. And so I use the FD because it's so easy to relate to the challenge the FD has. But the chairman, so this is what's happening right now when you go and apply for finance, or if you've applied for finance and you have to motivate and justify it, is your chairman, your CEO, and your FD all they fly through to BlackRock, they go into a room, and then they get split out, and they all get asked different questions, and their story has to be coherent and cohesive, particularly around sustainability, because actually it's the chairman's role to hold sustainability together. So I use the CFO because that's such an easy thing to ground it in, and because the annual financial statement usually pivots around the way in which they're presenting the results. But what's becoming completely an essential extension is to be able to hang your sustainability narrative off your financials and your results. And so in essence, so apologies if I biased the CFO, I was just trying to make it easy to relate to, but the chairman and the CEO are being asked questions by the investor, and mainly because we think the biggest driver happening right now is the fact that the competition for capital is going to become more and more linked with your ability to articulate and deliver against your sustainability narrative. So it's more the C-suite. If I biased the CFO, it was purely just understanding. So apologies for that.
So one suggestion I have is, and I'm very suggestive, by the way, so excuse me. That's right.
Wonderful.
Is to take a couple of those benefits and align them to the beneficiary. Because at the end of the day, I mean, kind of guys are sitting back there, the legal guy's sitting back there, and he's listening to this FD discussion and all that kind of stuff. And he says, oh, well, it's up to the FD to make decisions. I don't see my involvement in this and stuff like that. So, I mean, you've got the benefits that you've actually accrued or documented there have a preferred home, I think. So I'd kind of align those. So you're talking to an individual about the benefit that will accrue to them.
Thank you. That's great input. Thank you.
Okay. By the way, you are the data exec.
Is that a question or a
It's
statement?
kind of an observation from the past. I mean, we had many, many instances of where we were trying to make a sale to a bank in my life, particularly Standard Bank, as it happens to be. And they would take the input that we provided them, because we very seldom, we would be getting very bad odor if we were approaching the executives and the business folk. So we had to work through IT. And IT, to sell, they can't. So our sale was dependent on people that were not capable of selling and representing adequately what you have to offer. So in most instances, I would see you are the data exec. I would not entrust what your message to be delivered by somebody else without unbelievable rehearsal and you playing CEO like I'm trying to do at the moment as well, to see if they can get the message across.
Thank you.
I love the competitive gaming. I mean, that is so cool. And I mean, it's so important for the energy not to drop, the focus not to drop. And I would be, if I was the CEO, I would want to be, or the data exec, if that in that term, I would want to see those put into people's KRAs, KPIs, KRAs, whatever you want to call them, so that they are measurable in terms of where they're going and with associated rewards and stuff like that, like keeping your job, whatever. Broker didn't resonate so nicely with me. I don't have an answer. Yeah, but in a financial services term, and in any term, I think broker has a questionable value. Somebody who's broking something between two parties, and they by and large an intermediary.
Rob, that's an interesting one, and maybe just to explain a little bit more, the role that JG is playing is he's actually, first of all, he's getting financial documents from his customers that provide data. He's getting sustainability frameworks and information from the sustainability regulators, and he's getting a level of aggregated data from other customers that have presented financial documents and sustainability data. None of the data that he has, he owns. He really just generates it and then presents it in a format that he can sell or distribute to consumers. So he is a broker. He's not. He's actually enriching data. He's aligning data. He's connecting data and developing products from the data. He himself doesn't add.
Howard, I like. So for me, a take home from Rob is the implied association of that word in the industry. Right. So I think that absolutely, the moment you said that, Rob, I went, oh, I'm sure there's a better collective noun to describe what we're doing.
I'll think of that too. I think on that too, one that would help me.
Charles, you have
Howard, I don't know if this is
a... Could I just jump in on that? On that? Look, I mean, obviously this is my first time, and I haven't got much of a background in this whole meeting, but just kind of picking up things. So if I've got things out of context, then forgive me. But on that issue of broker, I had the same reaction as Rob. I put down, you know, well, so what are they actually doing? What product is there? And that's somebody coming into it blind. I mean, quite clearly, everyone has seen what you're doing and understands what product you've got. But the moment you say broker, says, well, okay, you don't have a product. You're a middleman. But listening to you describe it, you're adding value. So you're not a broker, because a broker doesn't really add value to the thing. They add value to the sale maybe, but they don't add value to the product. It sounds to me like you're integrating the product and you're adding value there. So it's more an integration role
But there's also the enrichment. So it's that
Yes,
analytics on top of that you can do when you bring all of the connected data together. You can find more enrichment.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I just agree with Rob that I think if you say broker, it sounds like you don't do anything.
Okay.
Besides, you move it from point A to point B where it needs to be,
Right.
and take a piece along the way.
Okay. I get what you said. Understand. Sorry, Rob. I think you had one more comment.
I haven't. It kind of dropped right at the end, and it wasn't triggered off by anything in particular. And it's probably not to do. It's probably more to do with with the execution of the implementation of the product, or applying the capabilities of the product. But data model failed at one of the banks that it was sold to. Okay, so there was a lot of arguments about why, but I was called in by the IT execs, and they said, "Rob, you've sold us a pup." And I said, well, I went away and thought about it, because I was quite cheesed at the time, and that was not the best time to respond, which I can do very fatally sometimes. And I went about and thought about it, and I said there were roles to be played in this data modeling exercise. The one role was the technical role. Okay, so there were some really, really competent guys that worked on the data model, did the implementation and stuff like that. But that's where their work stopped. They couldn't sell for toffee.
Yeah.
They couldn't persuade the developers how to include the data models in their development work.
No, okay.
So there was nobody to go in and sell that. And then I took the management to task, and I said, and you guys were absent without leave, okay? You weren't involved. You didn't put this into people's KPIs. You didn't show support for it and stuff like that. You played a totally, what's the right word, in the extreme?
Bystander or...
Yeah, I like that, Howard, an absolute bystander in what they were doing. So I just don't know whether there's lessons to be learned, and that was a very painful lesson, because once again, there was nothing wrong with the product. They might have, if IBM had got their act together, this was kind of an Irish initiative.
Yeah.
Not that I'm anti-Irish, whatever, but they probably should have started with process models. And they didn't. Okay, but anyway, so there was value to be had out of the data model itself, but I think they got the cart before the horse.
Yeah, and that's almost part of the data modeling course that I teach, Rob, is as part of bringing in industry data models, which IBM did a real good job of. They basically show people how to think about it from an industry point of view. To bring this in, you have to define a way of work, and it needs to be integrated into your development lifecycle, or your SDLC. And it has to be managed by project managers. It has to be overseen with review gates, and has to be aligned by architects. So a lot of the supporting framework just wasn't there, so that it allowed project developers to move on without it and not really pay attention to it. So there's an ecosystem that feeds these data models. I think JG is fortunate in a way that it's his team, it's his power that he gets from the ontologies and the frameworks and the data models. That itself is not sold to the provider or the consumer. None of that is. It's JG uses those models and frameworks to get quality, get understanding, and get clarity about how they're expressing these across their different financial documents and re-expressed. So I think JG's fortunate that he's not selling, how does one say, methodology. He doesn't need to sell a semantic methodology. The people that his consumers and customers don't need to know anything about his development methodology. JG, am I correct in that statement?
Yeah, correct, Howard. If anything, my desire to consider different methodologies is for scale and the ability to pivot. So one of the challenges that we have in the South African market is that we're serving a South African subsidiary of an international entity. So the moment you try and get your sustainability view to straddle from a divisional view to a group view, which might be international, they sometimes pivot in terms of the sustainability standards, and definitely, for example, the JSE or some of the procurement challenges are local. And so how does one pivot? And so I'm actually looking at some of the methodologies completely independently of the client's drive, because I'm just looking at them to see, can we pivot and then create a much more efficient system that can talk both to the local entity and the international body. So it's almost as if the client's unaware of the ontology drive or the taxonomies we're using. We're looking to use them to gain efficiencies and certainty. And when the client doesn't know which way they want to go, we try and drive them onto we encourage them to embrace a international standard, and we're busy building capability in terms of which ones are best for you in these circumstances. So no, definitely not selling methodology.
You almost
trying to apply it for efficiencies and actually to try and stay alive.
Applying it also to achieve clarity, so you don't have confusion within the financial document. So that's as you keep mentioning, that your scale has to ensure that the clarity, you used a different term, but I'm forgetting now the term that you actually used, but it referred to accuracy of the reporting.
Yeah, there's an assurance.
Yeah. Okay. Rob, we'd really appreciate your feedback, and I know that JG would love to continue the discussion and any other comments. I know, for example, John O'Gorman added several comments during the week on the Teams thing, so if you'd like to ask and reach out and answer, that would be great. Fantastic. JG, thank you very much. ST, let me see if I can wrap up pretty quickly and just get some feedback from you guys. Okay, so this is the wrap-up part. I would certainly like to just thank ST, JG, Paul, all the guys around for an amazing job. It was nice. It was great to sit and debate and first of all explain the concept of the semantic chain and then see how it could be applied to the use case of sustainability. So thanks for that. If we go to the next slide. That one we've done. Keep going. Again, okay, so JG, I haven't shared this with you, but this was from John O'Gorman. He's developing the Q6 framework and to orchestrate, and he actually, as part of the Teams chat, he would like to see, and I know ST commented on it, he would like to see the different frameworks or taxonomies that you have, and he would like to bring it into the Q6 and show how that pivoting can actually work. So he gave some really nice feedback to Debbie. He's the guy I would consider to be one of the thought leaders in the industry of the semantic chain. So that was nice to hear, and it's nice to see that he's keen to continue to bring in the sustainability industry frameworks into it and to provide you guys with some more feedback. Thanks, ST. Now what I'd like to do is just, I know personally I've got some great benefit out of understanding the sustainability use case with JG, discussing the different areas which I wasn't all aware of. So I just wanted to do a quick after action report with you guys, and that's where I'd like you guys to join on Menti at the moment. I will start it off, and then if we can continue. So please, if you could log on to Menti, I'd really appreciate it. Now, a simple after action report is I'd like to start off on what should we do more of. So did you guys find it beneficial, for example, and if you do connect to Menti, you can give me your feedback. So did you find it beneficial to actually address the semantic chain from those different personas, being a data management, a manager, a data citizen, a data professional, and a data executive. I certainly saw today that the discussion was completely different to that of a professional or a citizen or a manager. So I think it's helpful for us as professionals to learn how to communicate these to these different people. Why is it so important? Do you think the use of a business use case is valuable? And if you could give me that feedback on Menti now whilst I'm talking through it, that would be appreciative. I don't see anyone connecting. Am I just is anyone connected, or is it okay? So
should I go back to the slide with the numbers, or if people perhaps don't have the number, maybe paste it in the chat?
Yeah, that would be great. If you could.
I'll slide through it really quickly.
There it is.
There it is.
So what we're trying to do is to say, would other people be interested in doing what JG has done? So almost to take a data management theme or topic and present a use case in a similar fashion. And so what I'm trying to get back here is are people finding it beneficial? For the last 6 months, I've been working through the different knowledge areas of the DMBOK and presenting different themes. I will be doing it again next week on creating data products, just giving some people some time to prepare. So would be interested in the feedback. Okay. So we're getting some feedback. Fantastic. So you're seeing there that people enjoy the use case, not just here is an ontology or a controlled vocabulary. We need to actually see how it's applied within the business. Maybe that's just one person. So if we go back to that slide I was on, ST, that's right at the end. You can just hit the number and go there. Okay, great. So do more.
Okay. Next time I'll do that part.
Okay, great. So there's different persona, there's different use cases. What I did was I actually spent time with JG and ST almost twice a week, and we spoke about the different topics. I know JG in the beginning he basically said it was too much information and he needed to go a little bit slower to understand. And so that's where these sessions came from. They were predominantly with me. So anyone doing a new business case, and let's say you want to do it on creating data products or defining a data product, and how did you define it using sort of what JG was doing there? Would that be of interest to you? And so what I did was just made sure that people were talking about the right thing and giving the right feedback. Did you find it helpful to get some people like John O'Gorman present, listening to what we were saying, and then helping us correct our definition or our use of the word, or give us different insights in terms of how we were going? Okay, so maybe if I can just pause there. I've had two people respond. Anybody else want to add some response? There was a comment by Sammy, I think. Oh, I think this is advertising something else. Yeah, okay, not really want to do that. Thanks, Sammy, but not today. I think it's more important that we answer some of these questions. Okay, there's a third thing, review meetings. So that's a little bit down. JJ, how do you feel about that? I know we had sessions with you. I don't know if you can see it, but people are not too keen on the review meetings. How did it help you? ST?
Yeah, I think that maybe I can just talk about the benefit that we got as a company trying to deliver this product to our clients. Is those review meetings were very powerful for us to deliberate different things. What we then choose to present to the members was, you know, filtered and slightly different. So I would say, don't underestimate those one-on-ones. That's where the real value kind of happens, you know, and then we decided on what content to go with for the review. I can say that, like with anything, when you're presenting, you usually are a huge beneficiary, and I saw massive growth in Esty. I want to give a shout out to her. It was fantastic that one of my colleagues was able to you know, stand up to plate and bat this, but equally, Howard, your guidance was invaluable, because I really didn't know whether we should or shouldn't be chasing taxonomies and ontologies, and I didn't even know which their hierarchy was, and I probably should, but I just didn't. And so the value for me was huge, and those one-on-one sessions are very powerful. So it actually takes the pressure off presenting to the user community once you've had those sessions. So I would actually say they're an integral part of offering a case study. And they're 30 minutes. They don't take long at all. In fact, they save time. They don't, yeah. So if anybody's concern is that they're time consuming, it's not time, you know, I mean, how awesome that we get to ping our DAMA community. I mean, that for me is unbelievably awesome. And, you know, when you have real problems, you ping your community, and therefore the investment and the times that we spent getting ready, Howard, was very valuable. And then, you know, of course, we want to present a cohesive view to the community. And so invested a bit of time in preparing for that. But I would say that anybody thinking about a case study, I can't encourage you enough to leverage everything that you get out of this. It's super powerful, and it talks to the amazing DAMA community that we have in South Africa. I don't know how many other communities have this level of kind of vulnerability, because we're being vulnerable. We're saying we don't know, and maybe we should know, but we just don't. But we've got a client that if we don't ask, I mean, I think that this for me is let's never forget our client. Is if I didn't know how these things worked, and I didn't know who to turn to, and so I turned to the community. If I hadn't done that because, you know, vulnerability, etc., I would have done my client a disservice. I would be making suggestions that are poor to my client. And I feel like if we engage in the community such that we never lose sight of our client and what it is they need, and we just get better, how awesome is that? So I would encourage people to do that, and those sessions, those planning sessions, are key.
Thanks, JG. Esty, anything from your side?
Yeah, just almost iterate what JG's saying. I mean, guys, we are like a bunch of people on the call now, but I mean, that one-on-one session where it was just the three of us, just me, Howard, and JG, even if you have questions that you don't want to pose in front of everybody on the Thursday presentation, you can ask it there. Like I think I've asked some really random questions just because I'm not sure. And there's a lot of about semantic and semantic change. There's a lot of content online that you can read from it, but you don't always know what to go for. So it's then good for me to have, like, Howard, you've done like decades worth of projects, compared to me that have not done decades worth of data projects before. Like, that's very helpful to be able to ask somebody that has experience, like, has this worked in the projects you have done? And I mean, even if we got to this point and after 4 weeks, we're like, you know, semantic chain, not going to work for us, that would have been a win as well. It's not, it doesn't have to be a, yes, this is going to be good. Like, go through this exploration. If you find that what you started with is not actually going to work, that's a very big win. That is also a very big win.
Thanks,
No,
Esty.
it was good for me.
Thank you very much. Okay, great. So, all right, let's go to the next step and just to, what is it that you guys didn't like? Now, I can maybe there are areas, for example, when there's too much theory, too many essential concepts. Is that, or Menti? Is there anything that you guys didn't like or felt that we should stop doing? Okay, any comments on Menti? If there's any feedback? Okay. Do I take it no comments mean that we shouldn't stop anything? All right. Okay. Next one in terms of the next question is what next? So next month I'll be talking specifically on productization. How do we productize our data? Focusing on what is the business value? What is the way in which we package these products. I think JG's revelation there was really inspiring to me, and also Doug Laney talking about the value of our products. I really think we need to pay attention to this. So I'd like to just take it through a more formal approach next month on productizing data. And then May, would anyone want to contribute to doing a business use case in May? Now, you may not want to put it on Menti now, but if you would like to reach out to me and contact me, I'd appreciate that. But is there anyone out there that would like to talk about it? I see Rob's message, further development of the sale or the content of the message. I expect Giles will have some thoughts too. Okay, so that's more on, I suppose, on the present from an executive point of view. Okay, all right, and maybe we could do that, Giles. Maybe if we have people that have business use cases, they're developing products. Would someone be interested in and then talking to Giles about how to present it to executives or the economics around it? I know Giles does a great job in that. Scaling data products. Yeah, that would be great in terms of JG. That's almost in talking to your side where we have a product, and how do we now scale it from 1 to 1,000 cost of cloud for data? Yeah, that's a good question. I think it was Sean who asked me, and I don't know if you guys have been hearing about something called decloud. People are getting off the cloud. And so they're not able to bear the costs of operating on the cloud. So that was interesting. And I do know I'll actually reach out. There was a webinar the other day on the cost of cloud. So I can bring that in. That's interesting. Would anyone be interested in doing a business use case on the cost of cloud, applying it to their business? Maybe I'll reach out to Sean. But yeah, okay, great. Then thanks for that. Then the next one is what should we start doing? Okay, so is there anything you'd like to hear about? Are we missing anything? Are there areas that we're not presenting? So for example, with sustainability this month of March, is there something that we just missed and we didn't present? Or is there something that you would like to engage a little bit more with the content? Is there a way of this engagement? Any comments from anybody just to help us improve what we give? Three-month follow, 6 months. Yeah, that's JJ. That could be quite nice. Where are you in 3 months' time, 6 months' time? That would be great in terms of providing some summary to the challenges you're facing, how you scale. That is quite helpful. And so we could then get you back to talk about it. That would be really nice. Thanks, JG. Appreciate that. All right. So if we go to the next slide, Esti. All right. So I just wanted to mention before we end off, there's a really nice webinar. I think it's on April the 6th. And that's John O'Gorman, who's going to be presenting these different layers, these different elements, and how do we bring it together, combining multiple models in a graph using a language-based approach. So JG, this is similar to what you were looking at. And then there's another Dataversity on the 29th of March, which is using a semantic layer on top of big data to drive and improve the impact. Okay, so treating data as a product. So interesting that we're getting similar themes coming out of these presentations. So this is what's happening today. This at scale actually provides semantic layers and helps us build data products, almost meta-driven data products. So there's another one I've registered for both of them. So if you are interested, fantastic. Other than that, I don't think we've got many people left over. I think there's only 5 of us left. But JG, just to say thank you very much. Thank everyone for attending. Are there any last comments? Any last questions for JG and Esti? That's the next series. Yeah, the how to productize data. Okay, so.
Oh, thanks so much, Howard. Nice jump.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, JG. Thanks, everybody. Any comments from anyone before we close out? All right, great, guys. Thank you very much. Thanks, everyone, for attending. Good to see you again, Giles. Just look after the Transvaal. Look after the Transvaal for us.
Yeah, I will.
only remaining map. Excellent, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Cheers. Bye.